Billy's Nightmare pulls from a wide indie tradition of roguelike bullet hells. Enter a room, use your twin stick shooting to clear said room of baddies, repeat until you've downed all the bosses, then go do it again. You've definitely played something like Billy's Nightmare, but probably not something as blisteringly paced. 20-minute runs are the norm in this dream world where childlike whimsy meets comedic turbo-violence. But maybe even more defining is a de-emphasis on genre tentpole mechanics like builds and progression. That clears the floor for a fast-paced, action-focused roguelike whose wins and losses are always determined by how well you're dodging your enemy's bullets and how precisely you're landing yours. That also means it's not going for the same infinite qualities some of its muses have, nor does it boast much run-to-run variety, but what it lacks in random rogue thrills, it compensates for with a laser focus on its arcade shooting fundamentals, resulting in a worthy, if lightweight, entry to the genre. Everything in Billy's Nightmare can be found on the folds of a 7-year-old's brain. The boogeyman has taken over your dreams and converted them into nightmares. Defeating his army of rogue action figures, school bullies, and scary movie villains will demand Nerf guns and teaming up with Santa Claus. Don't let all the seemingly cutesy first impressions fool you. The game leaves PG territory the second you start touching the controller. Whether your foes have plastic bodies or not is irrelevant. Blood will be flying everywhere and decorating the room with morbid glee. Edgy flash games are the clear inspiration, and it kind of works because of how straight it's played. Billy isn't sadistic. The little characterization he gets portrays him as a plain old kid with childish fears and a cozy bedroom complete with interactive train set. He's a blankish slate, ready to have a bunch of different styles imposed on him. His abilities are entirely tied to the unlockable costume he has equipped, which can be picked at the start of a run and governs a primary and secondary attack. Importantly, those attacks are rigid once you're in a run. You'll never swap out for a new gun, nor will you ever upgrade that gun or your stats. Your average power at the start of a given run is usually pretty close to where it'll be at the end. What little powering up you do in between is just a few conditional defense tools and 1 or 2 active items. This seemingly subtle choice makes Billy's Nightmare play a whole lot differently than its supposed peers. The usual roguelike inter and intra run ramp up doesn't really exist because of how close you start to the relative apex of your power. That does rob the game of the usual rogue sensation of escalating strength and the thrill of lucking into an item that totally warps your run, but the flip side is how well it embraces that retro combat simplicity, which pays off because that combat is fun. Shooting and swinging feels punchy. You get a low cooldown dive move with lots of generous invulnerability frames, there's plenty of enemy variety with readable movement and intent, and you can weaponize that readability by baiting charters into environmental hazards or ensuring explosive foes die near their allies. The dozen-ish bosses are a highlight too, each with unique firing patterns that demand you move around the space in different ways. As you fight through more and more rooms, you'll acquire teeth currency to cash in at the Tooth Fairy, with her usual rewards being healing or some new abilities. Those abilities can vary in strength, but they're always a complement to your basic shooting powers, never a supplement. Freezes, poisons, summons, and more are the actives you'll be squeezing in between your left clicks, and they're the first of many ways in which Billy's Nightmare isn't just non-build focused, but also very fast. Once you get 2 abilities you like from a merchant or random event, there's really no harm in just blazing your way through to each boss. The preceding room always has a free teleport back to the shop, and that's really all you need. Exhausting all the rooms on a floor usually nets you more options rather than more direct power. Your readiness to take on the next boss will be defined by your skill above all. So you don't feel that pressure to make every run a comprehensive floor clearing one like you might in, say, Binding of Isaac or Enter the Gungeon. There's more explicit tools that encourage that speed too. Every character gets an out-of-combat mount with an instant cast time. After finishing a room, you can immediately mount up and sprint over to the next. The time between combat is rarely more than just a few seconds. You're immune to environmental hazards while mounted, so there's no risk in just blitzing around from room to room, and your cooldowns refresh at the start of every combat too, so you'll never have to wait. That's a nice touch. The result of all these decisions is a roguelike that is both breezy and immediate above all else. Once I became accustomed to its rhythm, I found myself playing multiple runs in a single session not for the surprise of what came next, but for the consistency. It's always you, your weapons, and the enemies. Everything else is tangential. There are some meta progression incentives, but much like the mid-run power-ups, they're commonly an expansion of the size of your toolkit, not the strength of it. With some exception, most of your meta currency will just be spent on new costumes. Billy's Nightmare won't be your next desert island roguelike, but its focus on action fundies instead of builds and progression gives it a fast pace and arcadey flow. The few random run elements at play are always an accessory to the bullet helling and never invalidate the challenge that hell poses. Once you've played it for about an hour, you can easily see where the next 10 hours are going, but within its predictable framework it executes with grace, and I think it'd be a mistake to sleep on it.